1952, USA. Where else could a red-blooded American boy lie, kill, cheat, steal, rape, and pillage with sanction and blessing of the All-Highest? George White wrote in a letter to Sid Gottlieb, chief chemist of MK-Ultra. White had come to the CIA from the Office of Strategic Services, America's wartime intelligence agency. For years, White was in charge of MK-Ultra's Operation Midnight Climax, a project set up to study the effects of LSD on sex. CIA-run brothels were maintained in San Francisco, New York, and Marin County. Drug-addicted prostitutes were paid $100 a night to bring their johns to these safe houses where they spiked the drinks with LSD. CIA personnel watched the action from behind one-way mirrors. The Johns were never told they'd been unwitting subjects in drug studies. April 3rd, 1953, Arlington, Virginia. Richard Helms proposed to Director Allen Dulles that the CIA set up a program under Sidney Gottlieb for, quote, covert use of biological and chemical materials, unquote. Helms made clear that the agency could use these methods in, quote, present and future clandestine operations, unquote, and then added, quote, aside from the offensive potential, the development of a comprehensive capacity in this field gives us a thorough knowledge of the enemy's theoretical potential, thus enabling us to defend ourselves against a foe who might not be as restrained in the use of these techniques as we are, unquote. Once again, as it would throughout the history of the behavioral programs, defense justifies offense. Allen Dulles approved the program essentially as put forth by Helms. Dulles took note of the ultra-sensitive work involved and agreed that the project would be called MK-Ultra. January 1954, Reader's Digest. Reader's Digest reprints Boston Psycho Breaks Rules and Cures Patients, an article originally found in the American Medical Association journal Today's Health. LSD research is touted as a potential cure for schizophrenics. 1954, Indianapolis. Eli Lilly and Company scored a major breakthrough in 1954 when its researchers worked out a complicated 12 to 15-step process to manufacture first lysergic acid, the basic building block, and then LSD itself, from chemicals available on the open market. Given the relatively sophisticated lab, a competent chemist could now make LSD without a supply of the hard-to-grow ergot fungus. Lilly officials confidently informed the government of their triumph. They also held an unprecedented press conference to trumpet their synthesis of lysergic acid, but they did not publish for another 5 years their success with the closely related LSD. MK-Ultra technicians soon sent a memo to Allen Dulles explaining that the Lilly discovery was important because the government henceforth could buy LSD in tonnage quantities, which made it a potential chemical warfare agent. July 14th, 1954, Addiction Research Center, Lexington, Kentucky. A document which outlines CIA experiments with massive amounts of LSD at the Addiction Research Center in Lexington, Kentucky, is written and later made public. Quote, our experiments on tolerance to LSD-25 have been proceeding well, although I continue to be somewhat surprised by the results, which to me are the most amazing demonstration of drug tolerance I have ever seen. I have 7 patients who have now been taking the drug for more than 42 days. All 7 are quite tolerant to both the physiological and mental effects of the drug. We have attempted to break through this tolerance by administering double, triple, and quadruple doses. 1954. According to an anonymous source, Anthony Burgess became involved with the CIA while working as a colonial service education officer in Malaya in the 1950s. The CIA mind control trials were the inspiration behind his most famous novel, A Clockwork Orange, which was adapted into an equally famous film of the same name by Stanley Kubrick.
How are you feeling this morning?
Fine, fine.
Good. Now, in a few minutes, you'll meet Dr. Brodsky and we'll begin your treatment. You're a very lucky boy to have been chosen.
I realise that, Mrs., and I'm very grateful to all concerned.
We're going to be friends then, aren't we, Alex?
I hope so, Mrs. What's the hypo for, then? Gonna send me to sleep?
Oh, no, nothing of the sort.
Vitamins will it be, then?
Something like that. You're a little undernourished, so after each meal we're going to give you a shot. Roll over on your right side, please. Loosen your pajama pants and pull them halfway down.
What exactly is the treatment here going to be, then?
Oh, it's quite simple, really. We're just going to show you some films.
You mean like going to the pictures?
Something like that.
Now, all the time I was watching this, I was beginning to get very aware of, not feeling all that well. And this I've put down to all the rich food and vitamins. The winter of 1955 to 56. James Moore wrote to R. Gordon Wasson, vice president of J.P. Morgan and Company and amateur mycologist, and expressed a desire to look into the chemical properties of Mexican fungi. Moore eventually suggested he would like to accompany Wasson's party, and to sweeten the proposition, he mentioned he knew a foundation that might be willing to help underwrite the expedition. Sure enough, the CIA's conduit, the Gesticker Fund, made a $2,000 grant. Inside the MK Ultra program, the quest for the divine mushroom became Subproject 58. Gottlieb's dream of the CIA monopoly on the divine mushroom vanished quickly under the influence of unwanted competitors. While Moore toiled in his lab, Roger Heim in Paris unexpectedly pulled off the remarkable feat of growing the mushrooms in artificial culture from the spore prints he had made in Mexico. Heim then sent samples to none other than Albert Hoffman, the discoverer of LSD, who quickly isolated and chemically reproduced the active chemical ingredient. He named it psilocybin. 1957, Life magazine. Life introduced its millions of readers to the mysteries of hallucinogens with a tone of glowing but dignified respect. One person whose curiosity was stimulated by the article was a young psychologist professor named Timothy Leary. In 1959, in Mexico on vacation, he ate his first mushroom. Leary had just been promised tenure at Harvard, but his life of conventional prestige lost appeal for him within 5 hours of swallowing the mushroom. Quote, the revelation had come, the veil had been pulled back, the prophetic call, the works God had spoken. And what about Leary's own statement that he wittingly followed the directions of the CIA in the 60s? When former CIA director Admiral Stanfield Turner was asked whether or not the CIA supported Timothy Leary or gave Leary LSD, he replied only, quote, the CIA gave it to those who were doing the research, unquote. 1957 to 64, Allen Memorial Hospital, McGill University, Montreal, Canada. Dr. Ewan Cameron rendered many patients unconscious or under the influence of LSD and used repeated recorded messages to drive messages through into people's minds. Dr. Cameron headed the Allen Memorial since 1943 when the Rockefeller Foundation had donated funds to set up a psychiatric facility at McGill University. With continuing help from the Rockefellers, McGill had built a hospital known far beyond Canada's borders as innovating and exciting. Dr. Cameron was elected president of the American Psychiatric Association in 1953, and he became the first president of the World Psychiatric Association. 1955 to 59, the Federal Narcotics Bureau, Lexington, Kentucky. The CIA conduct ibogaine experiments with unwitting blacks.
And according to these government records, in the 1950s, the CIA funded secret experiments of using ibogaine on humans at the Federal Narcotics Hospital in Lexington, Kentucky. And we discovered this letter written by Dr. Harris Isbell, director of the CIA-funded project. He said his tests were performed on unsuspecting black former morphine addicts. None of the patients knew what the drug was and were given no hints. To this day, it isn't clear why the CIA was testing ibogaine. But the fact is, the results of Dr. Isbell's experiments have vanished into the secret archives of the CIA or the Department of Defense, never to be seen again.